Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. I'm Jay, and for 5 years, I was a happily married man, or at least I thought I was. My wife, Lisa, and I had what most people would call a stable, healthy relationship. We didn't have major fights, we supported each other, and for the most part, life felt normal and comfortable. That's what marriage is supposed to be, right? A partnership where you grow together, build a life, and trust that no matter what happens, you have each other's back. But lately, things have felt off. At first, I didn't pick up on it right away. It was subtle, the kind of thing you could easily chalk up to stress, a bad mood, or just one of those weeks where things feel a little off balance. But as time went on, those small shifts turned into something I couldn't ignore anymore. Lisa had always been an affectionate woman. In the past, when I walked through the front door after work, she'd greet me with a warm embrace, sometimes pulling me in for a long, slow kiss, like she actually missed me. But lately, the kisses were barely there. A quick peck, like someone kissing a distant relative out of obligation. Conversations used to flow effortlessly between us. We could talk about anything. But now, she was barely engaging. I'd ask her how work was, and she'd give me short, clipped answers. The warmth in her voice was gone. The laughter, the teasing, the playfulness disappeared. It was like we were coexisting rather than living as a couple. And then came the mood swings. 1 minute, she'd be distant, lost in thought. The next, she'd snap at me over the smallest things. I'd ask if she was okay, or if something was bothering her, and she'd always say she was fine. Every time, I'd press just a little more, hoping she'd let me in. "Are you sure?" I'd ask. And every time the answer was the same, "I'm fine, Jay." But I knew she wasn't. The more I tried to rationalize her behavior, the more it ate at me. I thought back to the early years of our marriage, when everything felt easy. We'd talk for hours, without even realizing it. We'd lie in bed, tangled in each other's arms, whispering about our plans. We were a team. And now, it felt like she was pulling away, slowly but surely, like a tide receding from the shore. I tried harder. I planned date nights. I made more effort to check in on her emotionally. And I even started doing little things around the house that I knew she appreciated, just to see if it would bring some kind of reaction. But nothing changed. One night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the growing silence between us. It had been months since Lisa and I had been intimate. I couldn't figure out why. I had spent hours reading online about how to reconnect with a distant spouse, skimming through articles, relationship advice threads, and even those stupid save your marriage forums written by guys who sounded just as lost as I felt. One thing kept coming up: intimacy. Apparently, physical touch could rekindle emotional closeness. The logic made sense. Lisa and I had barely touched each other lately. No warm hugs, no playful teasing, just those quick, empty kisses that felt more like an afterthought than an actual expression of love, and those were not consistent either. So, I decided to try something simple. I reached out and gently took her hand. Just a small gesture, nothing forceful. The second my fingers brushed against hers, she jerked away, like I had burned her. "Just leave me alone." Her voice was cold. I turned to my side and decided to put in more effort. "Lisa, talk to me." My voice was soft and careful. "What's wrong? Did I do something?" She didn't turn to look at me. She didn't move. She just lay there rigid, like she was waiting for me to stop talking. I reached out again, this time just placing a hand on her shoulder, desperate for her to look at me, say something. Anything that would make this moment feel less like a nightmare. And then, she snapped. She whipped around, her voice sharper than I had ever heard it before. "Don't touch me. I can't stand you." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I actually felt my body tense, as if I had been physically struck. I searched her face, desperate for any sign that she didn't mean it, that she had misspoken, that it was just frustration talking. But there was nothing there, just cold, detached disgust. I couldn't even respond. My mind just shut down. I rolled onto my back, staring up at the ceiling, completely numb. And for the first time since we got married, I wasn't sure if it could ever be fixed. I stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't want answers, but because I already knew I wasn't going to get them. It's like I am just a roommate rather than the man she had once claimed to love. So I decided to watch instead of ask. I paid attention to the small details in the days that followed. Lisa had started falling asleep in random places. She'd doze off at the dining table, her head resting on her folded arms, while her laptop sat open in front of her. I once found her asleep on the couch in the middle of the afternoon, her phone still clutched in her hand, screen dimmed from inactivity. That wasn't normal. Lisa had never been the type to just knock out anywhere like that. Then there were the mornings. She always looked exhausted, even after getting a full night's sleep. Sometimes she would rush straight to the bathroom, and I would hear the toilet flush minutes later, like she had been sick, like she had thrown up. And then, the most concerning part, she was leaving the house more often. Lisa had never been secretive before. If she had an errand to run, she would say something. If she was meeting up with friends, she'd tell me who she was with and where she was going. But lately, she would just disappear. I would come home from work, and she wouldn't be there. No text. No note. Nothing. Then, hours later, she would just stroll in like she hadn't been gone all day. If I asked where she had been, she would always dodge the question, acting like I was being ridiculous for even asking. I thought about following her myself to investigate, but seems like I won't do it properly. So, I hired a private investigator. It took a week. "We have confirmation," the investigator said. And just like that, everything made sense. Lisa was seeing someone else. This was the answer I had been searching for. This was why she couldn't look at me anymore. I could have confronted her right then and there. I could have thrown the evidence in her face, demanded an explanation, and watched her squirm under the weight of her own betrayal. But I didn't, because at that moment I realized something else. She had already made her choice. She had already decided I wasn't enough. And I wasn't about to sit there and beg a woman to love me when she had already handed that love to someone else. No, she didn't deserve a fight. She deserved to be blindsided. I made my decision right then and there. I was going to divorce her, and I was going to make sure she never saw it coming. The house was quiet when I walked in one evening. I had left work early, determined to find a missing document I needed for the divorce process. My lawyer had asked for it days ago, and I had been putting off looking for it. I went straight to our bedroom, heading to my side of the closet where I kept all my important paperwork. I rummaged through the shelves, flipping through folders, and checking between stacks of old receipts and bank statements. Nothing. Frustrated, I sighed and ran a hand over my face. Maybe I had left it somewhere else. Then a thought struck me. What if Lisa had accidentally put it with her things? It wouldn't be the first time something of mine ended up on her side of the closet. Without thinking much of it, I turned to her side and started checking through her things. But what I found instead knocked the air out of my lungs. There, tucked inside a plain, white envelope, was a pregnancy scan result. For a few seconds, my brain refused to process what I was looking at. Lisa was pregnant. My hands trembled as I slowly pulled the paper out, my eyes scanning the details. Over a month along, I felt my heartbeat hammering against my ribcage. She never told me. Why? I read the date on the ultrasound. My mind started calculating, putting together the timeline. Was this why she had been so distant? Was this why she had snapped at me that night in bed? Why she had looked at me like I was a stranger she couldn't stand? And then a far more terrifying thought lodged itself into my brain. Could it even be mine? This couldn't wait. I couldn't sit on this information, couldn't pretend I didn't know. I needed answers now. I didn't even remember how the rest of that evening passed. Time blurred together, and all I could do was sit there, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling into something darker than anger. The sound of keys rattling at the door brought my thoughts back. The door swung open, and Lisa stepped inside, completely unaware of the storm waiting for her. She had her phone in one hand, scrolling through something, barely glancing up. I didn't let her settle in. "How long have you known you were pregnant?" The words shot out of my mouth before I could even think about softening them. Lisa froze mid-step, her entire body locking up, her mouth opening slightly. But no words came out. Silence stretched between us. She finally swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. I was preparing to tell you." I laughed. "Preparing?" I repeated, standing up from the couch, my entire body tense. "Why the hell would you need preparation to tell your husband that you're pregnant? Or is the baby not mine?" The second the words left my mouth, I saw it. That split-second hesitation. Lisa forced herself to recover, straightening her posture as she quickly blurted out, "Of course it's yours." I didn't believe her. Not for a second. I stepped closer, my voice low and firm. "We'll do a DNA test." She broke, letting out a choked, broken sob. "I don't know who the father is." I felt the words. It wasn't just a confession. It was a death sentence for everything we had built together. For months, I had felt something was wrong. I had questioned my own sanity and wondered if I was imagining things, if I was overreacting. But this was the confirmation I never wanted. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. "Get ready. The divorce papers will be ready soon." Lisa dropped to her knees, sobbing, begging me to think about it, to not rush into this, to just give her a chance to explain. I didn't care anymore. There was nothing left to explain. Lisa didn't make it easy during the divorce. She didn't cry for long. She got angry. She fought, dragged out the process in court, and made everything as painful as possible. She wanted the house and spousal support, and argued that 5 years of marriage meant she deserved something. I let my lawyer handle it. I wasn't arguing. I wasn't giving her the satisfaction. Then came the DNA test. When the results came in, proving the baby wasn't mine, she shut down. No more fake justifications. No more fights over assets. She had nothing left to stand on. The court sided with me. She walked away with nothing significant. I don't regret leaving. Not for a second. If I had stayed, if I had let her manipulate me, I would have been raising another man's child, trapped in a lie I never asked for. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had already emotionally checked out. The fights, the lies, the long, drawn-out legal battles, it all drained me. It wasn't until months later that I finally got answers on the full story of Lisa's affair. Through mutual friends and bits of information that surfaced during court proceedings, I learned the full story. When Lisa found out she was pregnant, she went to her lover, the man she had risked everything for. She expected him to step up, to prove to her that she hadn't thrown away her marriage for nothing. Maybe deep down, she hoped he'd tell her they could be a real family, that he'd be the one to take care of her now that she had burned her bridges with me. But reality hit her hard. Her lover didn't want the baby. He told her, flat out, to get rid of it. He wasn't ready for a kid. He didn't want the responsibility. He wasn't about to rearrange his life for her. Lisa was shocked. She had convinced herself that leaving me meant she was heading toward something better, that she was walking into a new life where she'd finally be happy. But instead, she realized she had destroyed everything for nothing. And that's when she snapped. Instead of blaming herself for her choices, instead of facing the fact that she had made the worst mistake of her life, she let that anger fester, and she turned it on me. That's why she became distant. That's why she couldn't look at me. That's why she said she couldn't stand me. It had nothing to do with me. She was mad at herself. Mad that she had bet on the wrong man. Mad that she had given up a stable, committed husband for someone who tossed her aside the moment things got real. And I was just the easiest target for all that bitterness, regret, and self-hatred. She wasn't disgusted by me. She was disgusted by herself. But by the time I realized this, it didn't matter anymore. By then, I had already walked away. I'm grateful I paid attention. If I had ignored the signs, I could have been raising another man's child right now. That's the reality. Some men look away. They ignore the gut feeling when something feels off. They convince themselves that their wife or girlfriend is just going through a phase and that she'll come back to them eventually. But let me tell you something. If someone doesn't want you, you'll feel it. I felt it. And I'm glad I listened. It's better to be divorced than to raise a child born from betrayal. That's my truth. That's my lesson. And if you've made it this far into the story, I want to hear from you. Would you have handled it differently? Would you have forgiven her? Or would you have done exactly what I did? Walk away knowing you deserve better? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you found this story worth sharing, hit that like button, subscribe, and send it to someone who might need to hear this today. Thanks for watching. Until next time.